Hello, this is Randy with Excel for Freelancers, and welcome to the Data Mapping Masterclass. In this exclusive training, I'm going to walk you step by step how you can create your own on-sheet forms and map them to the data. We're going to go through every step. I'm going to start with a blank workbook, and I'm going to show you how you can create your own on-sheet forms. It's going to be an incredible training, great for beginner or intermediate VBA. I cannot wait. So let's get started. All right, thanks so much for joining me today. I've got an incredible training. We are going to start from a brand new blank workbook. This is what we're going to be creating. I'm going to show you how to create your own product manager. It's just a basic form, but it is a fantastic training if you are new to VBA or if you want to review your skills and show you how we can map these fields to a database. Here, we're going to show you very, very simple code, step by step. We're starting from scratch, a brand new workbook. You can follow along with me every step, even if you have never coded in VBA. This is the training for you because I'm going to go step by step every step of the process. For those of you that are experienced or that are advanced, all I ask from you is if you could just share this with those that are new to VBA or new to Excel or want to create their own forms that they can create their own software. This is a great beginning, so I can't wait. If you do like these trainings, I just ask a few things. If you could go ahead and subscribe, that's going to help us out a lot. And go ahead and click that notifications icon bell below. That'll ensure that you get these trainings each and every Tuesday. I bring these to you absolutely free. If you do like these, all you can do is just download the workbook absolutely free using the links down in the description. But if you want an entire pack of them, in fact, up to 175 of them, I've got them on sale for just $66. That's only 37 cents per workbook, and that's going to help us out a lot. I'll include the links down below all about that. That's the 175 workbook. That will help us out a great deal. That comes with a complete library inside so that you can single click to get to any workbook or single click to get to the training. It's a really fantastic deal. I hope you get that up. All right, let's get started. As mentioned before, we are going to be creating this from scratch. I'm going to be creating this product manager, and we're going to show you how to create this product list and how to update, add new, save, and update. So we'll be able to add and we'll be able to load information. We'll be able to add pictures. I'm going to show you how to center those pictures, even whether it's a vertical picture or whether it is a horizontal picture like it is here. I'm going to show you how to do that in the training. So let's do that. Let's close this up. We're not going to use this. All right, so here it is. Here's our blank workbook. So that's the first thing what we want to do when we have a blank workbook is we want to save it. Now we're going to do file and save as. If you're new to VBA, you want to make sure that if you're going to be writing any code, you want to save it as an XLSM, M being the macros, or XLSB. Both of those are macro enabled. We generally use Excel macro enabled workbook. If you try to save it as an XLS, of course, you're not going to be able to save those macros in it. That's been an update since 2007. So make sure XLSM. Let's give it a product name and we'll go ahead and give it a location here. I've got a location already saved here in the Data Mapping Masterclass. Let's go ahead and put it in. I'm going to give it a name, except not the sample name. That's the one you just saw. So I'll give it a name, Data Mapping Masterclass. Make sure it's got XLSM. We're going to hit save. That's going to save it. Now, when we save it, it'll save those macros, okay? So that's very, very important. We've all made that mistake before, so don't feel bad if you save it accidentally as an XLSX and the macros are gone. That's going to what happened. Okay, so let's get started. Well, the first thing what I want to do is I'm going to drop this down here. That's going to ensure that we have it. If you want to move it back up, you can do it. But for our purposes, we're going to be using this toolbar a lot, so we want to keep it to drop down. And okay, I also want to give a special layout. We want to make sure that we click page layout, and then I'm going to select colors. We've got several color templates. I'm going to be using one called Flow. Sorry, that's a little bit off the screen, but I'm going to call it Flow. And what I want to do is I want to reserve the first two columns. Those are going to generally be hidden. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color those. And then when you launch these workbooks, what you can do is you can hide them. So we're going to color those in gray. And then eventually what you want to do when you're ready to do your workbook, you just right click and you hide those columns. Okay. Inside these, I'll be creating just a few fields that we're going to be using for our admin purposes, right? Those are things that users won't see because those columns will be hidden. And I also want to create a title and then a subtitle. So for the title, we're going to call this Product Manager. So you can put your title there, Product Manager, okay, all in caps. And then I'll give it a specific font and then a font size. So this one will probably go with, like, let's say something large like a 30 font. And then I'll use some nicer font. The font I'll just go with an Arial rounded. I like this one here. Arial rounded MT bold. Okay, this particular one I'm giving it a subtitle as well because it's also really called a data mapping masterclass. So I want to make sure to put that in, data mapping masterclass. And if I misspell things, you'll see that, but that's okay. There we go. There's one for you right there. Okay, data mapping masterclass. That's it. I'll wrap that around parentheses, and then I'm going to just to also make that one bigger so that we can see that. So then I'll give this about, let's say 25 nearly. That looks good. Italicize it. Now what I'd like to do is give it a little bit of a fade effect, and I want to go across. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all the way here. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to format those cells, and I want to give it a nice fade effect. So that's going to bring up that color palette right here. So we're going to go into the fill. And then I want to go into the fill effects, and I want to give it like a fade effect. So I'm going to choose two different colors. I'm going to use this theme right here, this blue. So I'm going to start out with this dark teal right here. And then I'm going to go into this teal here. This is the one, this is called, I guess we'll call it a medium teal. So it's going to be that dark to the medium. It's going to be used horizontal, meaning the darker is on the upper, lighter. I'm going to click OK. And then OK one more time. And I'm going to do the same thing, but using a different color here. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to highlight those cells. This is on line 2. Format those cells again. I'm going to give it a fill effects, but slightly different. We want it to blend, so we're going to start out with that medium teal that we used last time, that dark teal here, lighter 60%, and then we're going to go into the lighter one, which is here, the lighter 80%. Then I'm going to click again that horizontal, clicking OK and OK. Okay, that's the nice effect. So it gives you that nice effect. The rest of it, I'm going to give it a basic color, and I can do that from here. So I'm going to highlight all the cells. I'm going to go into here, and then I'm going to give it that main teal, that one that's 80%. That gives us this nice fade effect. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to merge and center this. I want this particular one all the way centered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all this because I want to merge and center. I'm going to click merge and center. I'm going to do the same thing with the data mapping. All the way to L, merge and center. Okay, so now I've got my header. It looks pretty good. Now the idea is what you want to do is you want to start your form about right here. I like to leave column C open, and that leaves us ability to center it. You know, column C is like a spacer column. So that's if you're going to put like a menu here or something, you've got a lot of space here. It gives you that flexibility. So I never use that first column. These two columns will be hidden. So what do I really want? Well, in this particular product manager, what I want to do is I want to be able to select from a specific data, right? I want to be able to actually have the user select a specific cell. So let's start in E, let's say 5, right? E5, that'll be the selection. So let's say in D, what I'll do is I'll put something like select, and then product. So the users will then select the product within this. Okay, so that's going to be the form. So they'll select a drop-down list of the product. Once they select that product, all those product details will load in here. Okay, so next up, once we have the product, I want to put the product name. So I'm going to put the product name here, and then down here I'm going to put the purchase. I also want a product purchase price, so purchase price down here. And then one more down, we'll put the preferred vendor. If there's a specific vendor you buy that product from, preferred vendor. Okay, so we have those fields, but I want a few more fields. So what I'm going to do is this is the field where the data is going to be here, here, and here. So I'm going to skip one. Now this will be like a spacer column. Then I'm going to put some more fields here. In this field, I want to put a non-editable field, and I want to have the product ID displayed. So we're going to put product ID, and I'm going to give it. Then next up, what I want to have is the type. Maybe we want a product type. Then also I want the sales price. We have the purchase price, how much we're purchasing it for. And I also want the sales price. And then perhaps the reorder quantity. What is the minimum number of order until we want to reorder it? So if we have 10 in stock, reorder quantity. And then our reorder quantity is, let's say 11, we know it's time to order. And over here, I also want to display a picture on here. So I think that's important. I also want to know the quantity on hand. So let's just do that. Quantity on hand. And then up here, I'm going to display a picture. So I'm going to leave some space up here because I want to put that picture there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold down the control, and I'm going to start selecting all these so that I can change all these fields accordingly, all of them. Okay, so all these fields. So I'm going to right click based on that. And I'm going to format those cells. And I'm going to use the same teal, but this one I'm going to use a darker. This one here actually not the fields. Let's cancel out of that. I'm going to keep the fill the same, format those cells, and actually I'm going to go to the border. So this is the border actually. I want to give it that same color. And I'm going to use this line. I'm going to loop it all the way around, but on the right side I want to make it a dotted line like this. Okay, perfect. And also I want alignment. I want to right justify those. We could do that, right justify, right indent. That's good. We could do that and click OK. That's good. Now what I want to do is now I want the overflow. So I'm going to double click this, and that's going to space it accordingly. I'm going to do the same thing here. Double click, space it accordingly. Now I want to focus on the fields. So I'm going to hold down the control. Again, selecting all the fields, not product ID, that's going to be slightly different. And then the sales price, the reorder quantity, and the quantity on hand. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them the white color. Okay, white. I'm going to right click here, go into the format cells, and then assign the same border color as I did last time. But this time, what I've already got the dotted line, I'm just going to color the top, the right, and the bottom borders. Okay, good. Now what I want to do, again, let's hold down the control. I did want to color the backgrounds white. We want to make sure that we let the user know that they can fill those in. Let's do that now. White. That's the one I want. Okay, so now we've got this. Let's double click on this. All right, great. So the product ID is a little bit different because it's not editable, so I don't want to make it white, but I do want to put the borders around it here. Okay, so the product ID will go here. We can expand this here. We've got the room, and we can also expand this here. Okay, good. So what the idea is, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be simply the buttons. I'm going to put some buttons up here. So I'm leaving space for those. I want to drop down list here. I want to select the product. Then I want that. Once the product is selected, I want the information to fill in here. All right, good. So I like that. Let's go ahead and save our work. And now let's develop some buttons. So the first thing we want to do is bring all of our buttons. Then we're going to bring the icons accordingly. So let's go ahead and insert. I'm going to insert a shape. It's going to be based on square shape. So I'm going to use this square shape here, this rectangle shape. I'm going to create one button first. And then once I create it and I get it just the way I like it, I'm going to go ahead and create the others. So this one, we're going to call this add product. Okay, so we want a button that button's going to list when we click it, it's going to clear all the fields and actually add a product. Then what I'm going to do is go into the home. I'm going to right justify that, and I'm going to center it. I'm going to increase the font a little bit. I'm going to make it bold. That's good. That's the way I want. I want a little bit bigger because I want to put on the icon. Now I want to give it a better look, something a little bit more with our theme. This one looks good. Either one of these would look good. Let's go with the darker blue. I like this one. Okay, so add product. I got that, but I also need buttons for saving or updating the product, deleting the product, and adding a picture. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on that, and I'm going to click Control D. One for the save update, one for the delete product, and one for the add picture. Okay, the add picture is going to go over here, so I'm going to put that here. Then I'm going to put the delete. I'm going to put that right here, and then I'm going to put the save or update right here. Bring this over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my selection tool. Now this selection tool is really cool. I've got this toolbar up here that helps me, the frequent items that I use and the macros and things that I use, I put them up here. This is called the quick access toolbar. If you want to add items in here, all you need to do is click more commands here, and then just click on the all commands, and whatever you want to find here, whatever you like, just find it within here, such as the selection tool. You know, if I want to find the selection tool, I'll do S and then click the selection tool. You find what you're looking for, whatever it is here, and then all you do is click on something and then click add, and it'll add it to your quick access list. You can move them up and down accordingly using these arrows. And that's it, so you can get anything. So I've put the selection tool. This selection tool allows me to click it and select all of the buttons here. So that way I can make sure that they're aligned. Aligned, again, in this case, vertically or middle, so I can align those. Now they're all lined up in the middle. Now what I want to do is I want to select these two and I want to align them horizontally. So I'm going to click align, and I want to distribute them horizontally so that they're all in the middle. Okay, good. I like that. Of course, they're not all called add product. So I'm going to undo the selection tool. This one, we're going to call this save or update. So I'm going to change the name. I'm going to call this save and then update. That's going to allow us to both do two things, save and update our products. This one, we're going to call this delete product. So I'll just write delete, and then I'll abbreviate product. Perfect. So I've got that. Now I've got buttons. What I want to do is I want to add some icons onto those buttons. So again, saving our work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert pictures, and I'm going to look for that folder. I've got some pictures here. Let's go up on a folder. I believe it's right about here. Here, Data Mapping Masterclass. Here, I've got some pictures here. So let's go ahead and put some pictures. I've got to put this one. This is going to be our icon. So we're going to add that here. And I've got some images here. So that's nice. That looks good. Now let's go ahead and put the icons. Now I got the images. So again, I'm going to do the insert pictures, and I've got some images here. Let's see right here. I got a bunch of icons. So what do I want to do? I want to use the add icon, right? That's important. So I'm going to hold down. I want to enter multiple of them. All right. I want to use the save. So I'm going to use this check. I'm going to click that, holding down the control so I can put in multiple. And I also want the delete. Now I can use the add for two. I can use the add for add picture and add product. So that plus, green plus, is going to use multi-purpose. I'm going to click insert. Now, of course, they're going to be much bigger. I don't want them that big. So I'm going to size them. I'm going to size, let's put them right around 0.24, something like that. That looks good. Okay, so now I've sized them accordingly. Now this one I'm going to put right over the delete. This one I'm going to duplicate, Control D. That's going to, because I'm going to use that for the add product right here. And I'm going to use it for the add picture product here, and add picture. So this is going to be changed to picture. So add picture, okay, because we want to add a picture of the product. And then this one I'm going to use for the save and update. Okay, good. I like that just the way it is. Again, I'm going to use my selection tool to make sure everything's selection. I'm going to click on that selection. Here we go. Move that over, and then I'm going to align everything perfectly. Okay, it looked already pretty good. So now move this back where it belongs. Now I've got the buttons. Now I've got it. I'm going to increase this one's a little bit squeezed, so I'm going to increase this a little bit. And the same thing for this one, a little bit bigger. Okay. When you add your buttons first and your icons second, everything will be on top, right? We want these icons on top. But if for some reason they're on the bottom, we can just move it, right? You can bring the forward, you can bring them to the front, or you can send things to the back, either way. Okay, so now that I've got my icons, what I want to do is I want to group them together. So I'm going to hold down the control, holding down the control again, clicking on both of those, and I'm going to use my quick access to group it. I want those grouped. And I'm going to repeat the process for all 4 of the buttons. Group, again, clicking on here, holding down the control, grouping, and doing the same thing here. This way I can assign a single macro to the group. So now I've got all the buttons. Perfect. That's just the way I want. Again, I'm going to save it again. And now what we want to do is we're almost ready to go. So what I want to do is I want the information here, but I want some more information here. I want to know exactly what. The idea is, let's give it this sheet name. We're going to call this products. And also I want a list. So let's go ahead and call this product list. And so what I want to do is I want to store all of the product data here. So all the information is stored here. And then what I want to do is when I select a product here, I want that information to show up here, including the picture here. And also I'd like a nice border around the picture too. So why don't we put a border around that? I'm going to format those cells, right clicking here, again with our same color here, and I'm just going to put an outline around here. There we go. Now we got a nice border around here, so our picture can go within that. Very good. So I want some information here, some information that's going to be hidden. What do I want to know? I want to know whether we're updating the product or not. Now I'm going to explain this a little bit later, but this is going to be a true or false product update, and then we'll just call it false. This is going to be a true or false. I also want to know the product row based on the name. Okay. When I select a specific product from a drop-in list, I need to know what row it is in this database. This is going to be called the product list. Okay, we're going to have all the fields, and I'm going to show you exactly how we do that, and we'll set that list up. And then, but I want to know the row based on this name. I also want to know based on the ID. So it's going to be based on different ideas, different variables, but it's going to return the same row, and I'm going to show you why that's important. So again, product row based on the ID also. Okay. So I'll show you why that's important. It'll come into play, but let's put that there for now. And then I also want to know the next product ID. Our product IDs are going to increment by 1, but I need to know the next one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to color all these different, just so we can see a nice different color here, and then I'm going to put borders around them. That's all we're going to need for this form. It's going to be really simple, and it's going to be great. So we've got that. Now what I want to do is I want to build this list up a little bit. I want to show this list and see how we can do that. And we're going to use some data mapping. So, but how do we know? What I want to do is I want all of this information in here, and I also want I want to know that when we add a picture, I need to know the file path of that picture, right? If we insert a picture, and I'm going to insert, let's just say we have one of these pictures, I need to know the full path of that picture. It'd be something like this, right? I want to know, I've got to save that full path of the picture, and I've got to save it inside the database. I've got to put it somewhere around here, probably about here in L11, but I also need to save that. So when I display that picture, it knows where on my computer to look it up. So that's super important. So I need to save that too. So we're going to save all these fields and something called a file path. Okay, so let's do that now. Let's go ahead and build out our database, what is known as a list or a database, and it's going to store all that information. But I don't necessarily know what we're going to put. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this nice little form we have, and I'm going to make a screenshot. I use a software called Snagit Editor, and it does a great job. So we're going to take a screenshot, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I include the rows and the columns. So here, so I'm going to include the rows and the columns. That's very important. I want to display that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let it go. It's going to go into my screen, and into my software. I'm going to copy that screenshot that I just made. I'm going to go back into the product list, and I'm just going to paste it temporarily inside this list. And this is just going to help guide us, okay? It's going to give us a nice little guide so we know exactly what fields can go where, and then we can delete it once we don't need it. Okay, so the first thing in row 3, I'm going to put some data mapping here. I'm going to explain that. This is the name of our list, and this is the headers here. So the headers are going to go in here. So the first thing what I want to do is I want a product ID, okay? Product ID, you want that. That's very important. And then the next thing that's going to be required, unique for every single product, will have a different product ID. The next one, I want the product name. Okay, product name. Let's see, we don't need to abbreviate that because it's going to be a longer field. Then, of course, I want the type, and I'm going to go, basically, I'm going to go here. So this helps us determine. Then I want the type, and then I want the purchase price. The names don't have to be exactly the same, right? That's not that important, right? So you can abbreviate here. And then, of course, I want the sales price. Then we have the preferred, we'll just put vendor here. Then the reorder quantity. Then we have the quantity on hand. And lastly is that file path that we need. We'll call this picture path. I need to know the path where that picture is stored. Okay, great. Now what we're going to do is we're going to highlight these. I'm going to double click on a column, and it's going to size them accordingly. Now that I've got these, I'm going to center these. In fact, I'll just center all of that here, moving it in the middle there. Okay, justified center. Now what I want to do is I also want to know the cell that these are stored in, right? So for example, if you see that we have product name is located in E7. Do you see that here? Product type is located in H7. The purchase price here is located in E9. So that's going to really help us out because we know exactly where everything's stored. So what I want to do is I want to put those cells up, and I'm going to explain a little bit why later, but basically we're mapping the data. This is part of data mapping. So product ID, where's that? That's located in H5. So I'm going to put in H5 here, okay? Then the next one, product name. Well, that's located in E7. We can see from our screenshot E7. So I'm going to put in E7. The next is type. Type, of course, is located in H7. So we do this for each of the data. Now, the reason we do this is because it saves tons and tons of coding. And I'll explain to you when we're doing the coding how that difference is and how it's so important. This is going to help us because we're going to write 3 lines of code regardless of the amount of data that we have in our table. Otherwise, another way to do it, if we have 100 columns, we'd have to write 100 rows of a line. This is going to limit it to just 3 rows, so it's a great way. So the purchase price, well, that's going to be E9, and of course, this sales price is going to be H9. And then we move on to row 11. So E11 is our vendor, while the reorder quantity is H11. Then we have the quantity on hand, that's going to be K11. And lastly, we have our picture path, K11, not K1, K11. Then we have our picture path located in L11. L11. Now the picture path, that can be hidden, right? Nobody needs to see that. We can change the font, but we're just going to put it in there, L11. Great, so we have our data mapping. This is called data mapping. We've mapped every single field inside our form with the associated column inside our list. So we're going to give that a distinct color, maybe in this gray. Generally, we can hide it. Then I'm going to merge and center this product. Let's merge and center, and I'll just give it a little bit of a color, something different here, perhaps this blue here, and then I'll do the same thing, but just a lighter blue here. That's just kind of a give it a look, but not necessarily important. Then I'll just put some borders around it so we can clearly see it. We're pretty much done with that. Okay, so we understand the data. Now what I want to do, so we understand exactly why we've mapped the data. We're good. We don't need this anymore. We're done with this, but I'll leave it here just for time being. Then what I want to do is I want to create some dynamic named ranges for the product name and for the product ID. So for example, the product ID will have 1, 2, 3 in here, so to speak. And then we might have the product name, let's say apples, oranges, and let's say bananas. So we've got that. So I've got the name. So what I want to do is I want to create a dynamic named range so that as our names grow, as our data grows, so do our names. So how do we do that? Well, that's going to be in the named ranges. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight this. That kind of gives us a name ID. So I'm going to go into the formulas, name manager, and I'm going to create new. Click on new. Okay, so I got the name. It's given us the default name. I'm just going to exclude the period there. So I'm going to call it product ID. Then what I want to do, instead of just these 3 lines, what I want to do is I want to create something dynamic so that as our product IDs grow, so does our named range, so that it encompasses all the IDs or all the names along, but nothing extra. So that's what we want. So we're going to do that. To create something dynamic, we're going to use offset formula. So it's going to be offset. Where are we going to start? In this one, I want to start with the header row. And why do we want to start with the header row? I want to start with the header row because it could cause an error when there's no data. But if we start with the header row always has data, it's not going to cause an error. But the thing is, we don't want to include the header row. We want to include only the data. So the best way to do that is start with 1 row below. So we're going to do comma, 1 row below, no columns below, so we're going to do a comma. And then what I want to do is I want to know how many. Then we're going to use count A. What that's going to do is going to count how many do we need to count. So let's expand this a little bit here. And what we want to do is, again, I want to use the header, count A. I want to do it all the way, but we're going to do a large row. So maybe I'm going to do much more than the limited data. So we'll do 9999. So basically that's going to count all of the fields in that range that contain text, except we're including the header, which we don't want to. We're purposely including the header, but we don't want to count the header. So how do we not count the header? Well, we subtract 1. So minus 1. So we subtract 1, comma, and then just a single column. 1 is a single column. We're going to use the tab key. We're going to tab out of it. We're going to use the shift tab. We're going to shift tab back into it. And we're going to look at these dancing ants. So we're going to make sure that they encompass all of the data, and they do. Okay, so that's just the way I want to do it. Now what I'm going to do is I've got this. I want to create another one very similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Control C. I'm going to copy this formula. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to create one more. I want one for the product name. So I'm going to click New. This one's going to be called not Product ID, but we're going to call it Product and then Name. Okay, I'm going to tab again. Control V. I'm going to paste everything in there. Now, all I need to do is just change one thing. The count, we're going to be basing it on the count. So the counting can be the same. It can be based on that product ID because that product ID is required. But what do I want to do? I want to base it on a different column. So I'm going to change this one to B. Column B is where our product names are located. I'm going to tab out. I'm going to shift tab back in. And I'm going to check it and make sure those dancing ants are around the product names. And it comes, that's perfect. That's exactly what I'm going to click OK. And then click, we've got our 2 named ranges here, and then click close. Perfect, that's all we need to do. I'm gonna save our work. Okay, we're good on this. We don't need this data mapping. I can delete that shape. It's done its job, so we're good to go. I'm gonna go back into the products here. Now we have it. So now what we want to do is we want to select a product. But what product? We just created a named range, so we can use data validation drop-down list for that. I'm gonna go into data. Again, data validation. Here, I'm going to click it, and I'm going to click a list. I want a list. And what is that list? It's going to be that name we just created. If you want to know it, you can use F3 to find it, right? But if you know, F3 product name is what we did. Click OK. That's exactly what we want, product name. Clicking OK again, and now we have a drop-down list. Perfect. That's what we want. Apples, oranges, perfect. So when I click that, I want to load all the information here. So let's fill out some of this. Now I want to know the product row based on the name, right? What is our product row? I want the row. Our product row in apples is 4. Our oranges is 5. Okay, so how do we get that row? Well, we can use the match formula. So first we're going to wrap it on if error in case there's any problems. Equals if error, right? And then what I want to use the match. So match. And then what I'm looking up? I'm looking up apples. And what named range am I going to use? I'm going to use product name, right? Because that's the name we create. I'm going to look it up. And I want an exact match, so I'm going to use 0. Okay, and then what we're going to do, if there's an error, I'm going to put double quotes. So I want it empty if there's an error. Okay, what does that return? It returns 1. Why does it return 1? Well, it returns 1 because it's the first one found. But as you can see, I don't want 1, I want 4. So how do we know? Why is that? Because our first value starts on row 4. So all I need to do is take this, come here, and add 3. Perfect. Now, if the name is removed, if there's an error, it's not found, it's going to go to blank. That's exactly what I want. So that way, oranges are on 5, and then bananas are on 6. Perfect. Okay, but I also want the row, and I'm going to left justify these so we can see that it's associated with the name. And then also what I want to do is I want a product row, the same thing, but I'm going to base it on product ID. So that way, when this ID changes, product ID 1, 2, or 3, I also want a row based on this ID. I want both. Okay, that's very important. So again, I'm going to use the very similar formula. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it down here just so we can see the formula, or I'll just rewrite it. It's easier so you can see it again. Equals if error. And then this case, again, we're going to use the match formula also, but we're going to look up, in this case, we're looking up the product ID. And we're using a named range, the product ID named range. That's the one we're using. Comma 0, we want an exact match. If there's an error, I want to show blank or empty, double quotes on that. Perfect. So now if we're using product 1, right, 1 here, I wanted to show 1. Again, we don't want to show 1, we want to show the row. So again, we must add 3 plus 3. Perfect. So that way they're both. That way when the idea is when we select here, everything's going to load up, including the product ID. Also, what I want to do is the next product ID. If we notice, we have 1, 2, 3. So what would the next one? As long as our product IDs are numerical, meaning they're numbers, we can design the next using the match form. In this case, the next would be 4. So what is that? So the next product ID would be, again, I want to wrap it in if error equals if error. And then I'm going to use the max formula. Max of what? Max of all the product IDs. Product IDs. Okay, so I don't want just the maximum. Maximum is 3, but what I want the next one. So what's the next one? It's going to be the max plus 1. But what if there's an error? Well, why would there be an error? There would be an error if there's no data at all. If we have no data, then there would be an error. So I don't want an error. So what do I want if there's no data at all? Well, I want the next available product ID. In this case, let's revert it to 1. Okay, so comma 1. So here we have 4. Again, the next product ID is 4, right? If we add another one here, it's going to, let's say 4, and we're going to get the result as 5, right? That's what we want. But what if there's no data? If there's no data at all, I want it to revert to 1. Perfect. That's exactly what I want. Okay, good. So we have that. All right, excellent. We're just about ready to write some code now. So we've got everything filled out. We understand the next product ID. We've got the product row based on the ID. We've got the product row based on the name. And we've got product update, which I'll explain. Cool. So let's save our work, but I'd also like to add pictures. So let's put in some information. Let's clear this out, right? We don't need that, right? And what I want to do is I want to put in, let's just say green apples, put in some data here, green apples. And then let's put in a type of, just call this fruit. And then purchase price, let's put in 0.75 and the sales price of 1.5. And let's say Fredder's Farms as our farm we're buying from, and the recorded quantity is 10, and the quantity on hand, let's just put it as 15. Okay, so great. But what I want to do now is I want to be able to add a picture. So I'm going to save that work. And also I want to use these. I want to put these as currency. So I'm going to hold down the control and then put these both as currency. Okay, good. That's exactly what I want. So now we're good to go. I'm going to left justify this one, and that looks pretty good the way it is. Okay, I like it. So what I want to do is I want to write a macro, and that macro we're going to do is going to add that picture here. So we're going to actually write 2 macros. One macro is going to add the picture. It's going to put that file path right here of whatever that picture is. And then the second macro is going to actually display that picture. So how do we do that? Well, let's get ready to write that macro. So the best way to do that, of course, is in the VBA editor. And we can use our developers tab here. If you don't have a developers tab, all you need to do is click on the file options here, and then the customize ribbon, and just make sure you've selected the developer, select or unselect, select that one here. That will get you inside the developers. From there, you can click on the Visual Basic. If you want to use a shortcut, you can use Alt F11. Alt F11 will get you there. And this is going to bring us to the VBA editor. Here's our VBA editor. Okay, so we can write macros in here. We have macros that would go on the sheet, and we can create modules. So we're going to do that. First thing, what I want to do in this training, what I'd like to do is I'd like to rename sheet 1 so that it's clear. So I'm going to call sheet 1. To rename it, we're going to click this little properties here. See this properties window? F4 is the shortcut there. Properties. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and name, and I'm going to call this products as well. Products. Okay, that way we won't be working with sheet 1. I'm going to do the same thing for sheet 2. I'm going to double click sheet 2 here. I'm also going to change the name here. I'm going to call this product and then list. Okay, and it's going to give us a little abbreviation. Make sure there's no spaces or special characters for those names. Okay, good. So now I've got product list and products. So those are the two sheets we have. We're not going to be using sheet 3. Now what I want to do is I want to create a module. So I'm going to right click anywhere on here and I'm going to click insert and then module. And this is where our macros are going. So macros that run are going to go here, but macros that go on the sheet, for example, if I make a change here, that would macro go on the sheet. Or if I make a selection change here and I want a macro to run, or I make a change, those would go on the sheet, meaning here macros written on the sheet. Otherwise, they're macros written inside a module here. So I'm going to create two different modules. The first one, we're going to call this picture. Let's just call it product pictures. So we'll put in some macros, 2 macros for the product pictures. And then we'll just call this another one. I'm going to right click. I'm going to insert a new one. We're going to call this module. Right click. Sorry, it was off the screen, but basically, let's just show you that. Basically what it is, a right click, insert module. Okay, that's all I did. Insert module. That's it. Okay, so I've got 2 modules here. And now what do I want to do with them? Well, I want to give them name. It's always important to name your module. So I'm going to double click in here again. Click on the properties here. If you don't have that, F4 will get you there. I'm going to get to this. Just call this product. I'll just use macros. Okay, underscore and then macros. Okay, so now I have 2 different modules. So the first thing I want to focus on is the product. We can close this out. We're not going to be using this properties at this moment. So now we can close this out. Option explicit. That comes up automatically. So when you click on tools, right, and you click on the options here, you see here we have editor format, we have a bunch of things, we have general, right, we have break on all unhandled errors, we have show tools, collapse. So these are really things that we can study a little bit. Docking, if you want a docking, editor format, we have the editor here. Okay, so require variable declaration, that's going to allow us to option explicit, and that means what it's going to do is going to make sure that we declare variables, and I'll show you what that is. But declaring variables, that's going to put this option explicit automatically inside our code when we create new modules, or also here on inside the sheet. Okay, so the first one, product pictures. What do I want to do? I want to create a new macro that's going to help us with that. So the first thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to dimension one of those variables, but I'm going to do it outside a macro. The reason is I'm going to do it outside because I want this variable available for both macros. So we're going to do dimension picture path as a string. This is a string variable. That's the path of that picture. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my first macro. So we're going to sub, and this is, we're going to call it browse underscore for and then pictures. So we can browse for picture. Okay, so what we're going to do is this is going to allow us to browse for the picture. Okay, so the first thing what I want to do inside this macro is I'm going to dimension another variable. Dimension, we'll call this picture, let's capitalize that, file as a file dialog, because I want to launch a file dialog so we can browse for a specific file. Okay, now we can write some code to do just that. So we're going to set the picture file equal to application, and then we're going to write that dot. And then what I want to do is I want to find the file dialog. File dialog's here. That's what I want to create. File dialog. Then what I want to do, what type of file log? I want to make it, if we take a look at here, we see that we have folder picker, we have open, we have save as. The first one is a file picker. File picker is the first one because I want to pick a specific file. I want to search for a folder. Close the parentheses. Okay, so we're going to mention that. Now we've set that up, but now we want to do some things with that. What do we want to do? So with, and then what do I, so notice how it automated that. That's auto hotkey that will allow me to, auto hotkey is a free software you can download that automates that. I've programmed it to do that. Well, that's on another training. So with picture file, we want to do some things. What do we want to do? Well, the first thing I want to do is give it a title. So what is the title? Let's just call it title, let's say equals, and then browse, select a product picture. Okay, we wanted to. What else do we want? What is, I want to give it a filters, right? In this case, I want all pictures. So filters, what kind of filter do we want? Filters dot add. I want to add some filters because I only want the users to select pictures. We're only focused on file types that are pictures. So filters dot add, we're going to add some filters to that. What kind of filters do we have? Let's give it some text. So we want to let the user know what type. All picture files. So that would be the text, that's the information, comma, and then what do we want? What kind of picture files do we want? I'm going to use the parentheses. Then I want to use the asterisk. That means it's going to be anything that begins or anything that ends with .jpg, right? We want .jpg. So that's one of them. That's important picture format. What else do we want? We want, let's use comma again. Maybe we want JPEG. So asterisk again, the file can start with anything, .jpeg. Okay, so that's important. We also want maybe GIFs, right? So comma, again, asterisk, and then GIF, right? GIF, GIFs are good. We can put those in, so why not? And then also maybe .png, so it's asterisk, .png. We want those files. And then maybe BMPs. Let's go with BMPs, and then that'll be it. We can add on there. So asterisk, .bmp. Okay, good. Those are good. And then what basically we're end quotes, and then of course comma, and then 1. Okay, we want the position is just 1 on that. Okay, great. So we've got that. Now what else do we want? So we've got the filters. Now we want to make sure that the user has actually selected something. So what do we want to make sure? We want to make sure that they've made a selection, because they have. If they haven't, we can't move on. So if .show does not equal -1, when it's going to be -1, .show equals -1 when they've actually selected something. So when it's not that, then we need to know, we need to skip the next step. So how do we skip something? Then go to, let's call it no selection. And when we create a skip, we need to make sure we create that. We actually send them somewhere. So no selection, this is where we're going to be sending them. And then put the colon there. That colon is very important. Okay, so now that they're going to skip here, but assuming that they have selected something, what do I want to do? I want to define that picture path into a variable. Picture path is equal to .selected items. And then they've selected a single item as long. That's the item numbers long. So picture path. So now we have the path, the full path of that picture inside that variable. What do we want to do with it? Well, I want to put it somewhere, right? Where do I want to put that? As we mentioned before, I'm going to put it right here inside L11, and that's based on the product sheet. So let's just do that right now. So products dot range F11, not 211, 11 dot value equals what? Equals the picture path. Then we're going to make a comment, set picture path. Okay, that's the comment. That's what so we know what we can comment each one of those lines out. Okay, so we've got the set picture path. Now we can remove the spaces, so we're good to go. Now what we want to do is we want to test this code out. Okay, so again, every time before you actually run your code, you always want to save. If for some reason there's a big error, at least we've saved our code. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to take this macro and I want to assign it to the button. So I'm going to right click, copy that. Now I've got this button here, right? This group. I'm going to right click, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign the macro, or clicking N. We only have one macro, so I'm going to click it and click OK. Now we've assigned it this button, but if we take a look, if we right click it again, assign macro, we see it's not assigned. Well, that's kind of weird. We just assigned it, right? When we have a group like this, the macro is actually assigned to the individual components of the group. So if I right click on an individual component, then click on assign macro, we see that it has been assigned. And the same thing for this plus. Right click, assign the macro, we see that the macro has been assigned for the plus, but not to the group, which is fine. So now when we click on add a picture, we're going to see if there's any issues. Okay, good. Now we're going to click on a picture and click that entire file path should be put there. Okay, we need to put it in L11, not F11. That's fine. Not F11, but L11. Good. Let's update that code. Okay, make sure we got it right. L11, not F11. Okay, so notice how it appeared in the wrong cell. That's fine. Now we click add a picture, just test it out again and make sure it appears in the right cell. Perfect. Okay, so I like that, but I don't really want this. So what if I can, in other words, I don't want it to extend. If we want to hide it, all we need to do is just change the font color, right? For our purposes, we can just change the font color. If I change it, it's going to be hidden, but for our purposes, we want to keep it, but we don't need it long. So we can put a space here, it'll just show up here. But that entire path is right here. Perfect. So now I've got the entire path, but what I really want is I want that picture to show up right here. How do I get that picture to show up here inside this box? That's what we're going to do in the next macro. So the next macro is we're going to do that. Let's call this sub product, and let's call it or display picture. That's what I want to display the picture. First thing we want to do is we're going to focus really on this product sheet. So we're going to focus with, I'm going to do with products. Go back up here. Products. That's the sheet we're going to be focusing on. So if we know we've got the sheet right, if I click dot, I know that there's something. But if I spell that wrong, right, and I click dot, nothing happens, right? So we know by putting that in and then entering dot, we know that we've got options. So we've put in the sheet right. So what do we want to do? I want to focus on this product sheet. So the first thing what I want to do is I want to delete any picture that might be there. I'm going to give it a specific name, this picture. Every picture is going to have the same name because that way it's much easier to delete. So what name will I give it? Let's just call this product picture. So what I want to do is I want to delete it. So dot shapes product picture, and then we'll just call it dot delete. Because if I'm going to be showing a new one, I want to delete any old one that might be there. However, if for some reason that shape doesn't exist, it will create an error. So how do we avoid that? Well, we can do on error resume next. So on error resume next, not result, resume next. I've also got it automated, so we use auto hotkey. So I do it something like this, and it automates it for me. Auto hotkey, free software, you can automate text. So on error resume next, but I don't want to on error resume next on every line. I want to close that loop so that any errors after that will show up. So we're going to do on error go to 0, and that what does, it automatically sends all errors to 0. Okay, so any new errors will come up. So that way, if for some reason it doesn't exist, it won't create a bug. Okay, so now that we've deleted the picture, the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that we actually have a file path inside L11. If we don't, we can't open a picture if there is no file path. So that's the first thing we want to check for. So I want to know, but I want to dimension some fields first, right? We want to dimension some fields. So let's do that because I want to know, I want to dimension, actually we could do the width and height, but I think we'll be able to go without it. We don't need them right this time. So let's just go without them for now. If we need them, we'll add them in, but it's pretty self-explanatory, so we may not need them. If dot range L11, right, that's where our picture path is supposed to be, equals empty, then what should we do? Then we're going to exit the sub. There's nothing we can do if there's nothing inside L11, right? That's where our picture path is located. Then exit sub, nothing we can do. What if, but now what if there's an incorrect? Okay, so let's say we have something there, but what if it's incorrect or there's an issue? I also want to exit the sub if it's an incorrect path. So maybe there is some text in there, but maybe it's not a proper path. So how do we account for that? Let's do that right now. If directory, we could actually define that into a, we could actually do, we have a variable up here, so we can do if directory. So now let's assign it. We'll assign it that path. Picture, again, we'll do path, right? We've already defined it up here. Picture path is a string. So path equals, right? Now we know equals what? Equals whatever's in here, L11. So copy this, equals L11. This is the picture path. Okay, so now if the directory, we can continue on that, directory, picture path dot VB directory, what it's going to do is going to look up that directory. It's going to look up that file path, that name of that file. If the directory of the picture path file directory, we're looking it up, and we say if it's showing nothing, then we know it's something's wrong. So if it equals empty, then exit the sub, right? Sub. That means there's an error with that path. Okay. Now we know there's a value in L11. We know that there's a correct path. So now we're ready to go. So now what I want to do is now we're going to insert the picture. Dot pictures. That one won't come up automatically. Dot insert. What are we inserting? We're inserting the picture path. So here it is. Picture path. And what I want to do is I want to assign it a name. So dot name. And what is that name? It's the same name up there. Equals product picture. Okay, product pic. That's the name. Add picture and assign name. Okay, so now we've done both. Dot pictures, inserting picture. Of course, all we've done is insert it. We haven't we haven't displayed it, we haven't positioned it, we haven't sized it. So we need to do all of that. But now that we've given it a name, now we can work with it. So let's do that with, and then again up here with what? With dot shapes. We're focused on this product picture. We want to do some things with it. Product picture So what do we want to do? Well, I want to place it, right? I want to place it. Where do I want to place it? I also want to make sure we lock the aspect ratio. I don't want to change anything. So let's do that first. Let's lock the aspect ratio. When we're going to resize it, but I don't want to resize it and change the aspect ratio of the picture. So the first thing we want to do is dot lock aspect ratio equals true, or MSOC true. So now that it's locked, it won't change, but we can change the dimensions, but the width, if we change the width, the height will change. If we change the height, the width will change. That's just what I want. But now what I want to do is I want to fit that picture right in here. So I want to give it a specific size, right? But I need to know if the width is larger than the length or the height, then we need to do the width smaller, right? Or the height. Or in this case, the height. So which is bigger, the width of the picture? Because we may have different pictures. If we notice when we add a picture, an apple like this, the width is heavier. An apple like this, it's vertically, right? There's a larger height in this case. So we need to account for both of these types of pictures. So how do we do that? Because both of them, I want them to fit inside this box, and I want it to be centered in this box. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's go ahead and write some code. So if dot width, the width of the picture is greater than dot height, then we want to do something. Then, well, let's go right in the then, right, we need to do something else. We do something else. So if the width is greater than the height, what do I want to do? I want to assign it a specific width. So let's do this. Dot width, let's give it around maybe 90 equals 90. You can play with the sizes, you know, if there's too big or too much. Else, what do I want to do? I want to set the height. Dot height. Let's see. Height, H-E-I, height equals, let's say around 70. Okay, so that's good. Let's take a look. And then what else do I want to do? Well, I need to actually display it and put it on specific form. Where do I want to display it? We haven't said exactly where we want to display it. I want to display it based on a specific cell. Based on this top left cell, J5 is where I want to display it. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So the dot left position is going to be equal to, now again, I need to specify the sheets. Notice I'm inside the dot shapes here. So that means I'm going to need to specify this product sheet again, because I want to base it on that. Equals products dot range. Again, we're going to base it on that J7. So it's going to be based on J5 actually. J5, let's double check that. J5, correct? J5 is where we want to place it. So it's going to be based on that J5, the left of J, on the left side. So it's going to be right on the left of J5. And I also want to place it on the top. Dot top, what is the top position? The top position is also going to be based on J5. Equals products dot range J5. Dot top. Okay, let's take a look at that and see how we're. So now when we add a picture, quotation marks there. Okay, we're good to go. So this is the left position, and this is the top position of that picture. So now we've gotten rid of what we want to do. Now when we add a picture in, when we browse, I want to automatically display the picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this macro here, and then right here in between, not if there's no selection, right? I want to skip it, but I want to paste that macro in here. Run macro to display picture. Okay, good. So now I'm going to save our work. We can save it from here as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Add Picture. I'm going to display this picture. I'm going to click OK. Okay, good. That's exactly almost what I want, right? It's the size is right. Now let me do that again. I'm going to display the vertical, making sure that, okay, the size is good. I could probably go a little bit more on the vertical on here, but it's okay. So, but it's nice, but really what I really want it to show up like this, right? I really want it centered here. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just center it right here? I don't, but how do I know? You know, how do I know exactly where to put it? It'd be nice, regardless of the width or height, I want it centered. How can I do that? Well, I can do that with just a little math. Let's start out with horizontally, right? What I want to do is I want to determine the width of columns J and K. I want to know the width of that. If I know the width of J and K, and I also know the width of this, all I need to do is take the width of this, subtract out the width of this, and then divide it by 2. That's going to give us an equal space on both sides. So let's do that. So let's add that in. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to focus on the dot left, right? We're just focused on the left position. So let's do that. So basically I want to add something, right? Currently it's showing up right here. So if I add something to dot left, it's going to move it over to the right. If I subtract from the dot left, it's going to move it to the left. So how do I get it to move it over to the right, and how much? So the best way to do that is to just simply add something. We have to know how much to add. So again, dot left, we're adding to that. So I'm going to hit plus here. What are we going to add? Remember, we base it on, we're starting out with the width, the total width of these two columns, J and K. So let's get that first, the total width of those two columns, and put that in there. Again, products dot range, J through K dot width. That's going to get us the total width of the columns. But I don't want that. Now what I need to do is I need to subtract the width of that specific picture. So we're going to subtract out that. So we're subtracting out the dot width of the picture, whatever that is. So now we've subtracted it, but now what I want to do is, right, so now we've determined, so let's say the width is this, and we determine, now we know how much space to add, but what I need to know is how much, that's the total space, right? The total space difference between these. But what I want to do is I want equal space on both sides. So I need to divide that number by 2 to get the equal space. So let's do that right now. So we need to divide it by 2. So it's going to be the sum. So let's put that in left equals the product. Let's put this in parentheses. Sum of these two, right, subtraction here, divided by 2. Let's take a look at that and see how that works. Okay, let's browse for another picture. And let's use the horizontal one. Click OK. Okay, that looks perfect. Let's add another one. Let's do the vertical one. And perfect. You see how now it's in. But look, we have to do it vertically. I also want it centered right here. How do we do that? Exactly the same kind of math. Except this time, we're not using these columns. We're using these rows. We're going to be using rows between 5 and 10. 5 and 10. I want to know the total height of all the rows between 5 and 10. I'm going to subtract out the height of the picture and then divide that by 2. So let's take a look at that. So plus, again, we're going to put in plus here. Again, I'm going to put in this parentheses, products, spell it right, dot range. Again, this one between 5 through 10, right? Rows 5 through 10. And I want to know the height of those. And then I want to subtract out something. What do I want to subtract out? I want to subtract out the height of the picture. So the height of the picture. Then I'm going to divide that by 2. So this with top position is basically the height of the rows divided by the height of the picture, subtract out the height of the picture, divided by 2. We're going to split it. So that way we have the same amount of space above the picture and the same amount of space below it. Let's click add a picture and see how that works. Let's add apples here. Okay, perfect. Now we've got equal space on both sides. Let's do the vertical one here and click OK. Nice, equal space on both sides. Now we've got the picture centered perfectly, just the way we want it. Okay, good. Let's save our work. Now all we need to do is just 2 things. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this information. When I click save or update, I want this information to go inside the product list here. So let's clear out the data that we have, and let's write the macro for that. Inside a brand new module, we're going to focus on the product macros. I'm going to write several macros on this, maybe just a few of them, not several. Let's see. We're going to focus on, let's call this a save and update. We need a macro for save and update. So sub product, let's call it save update. Okay. And then I want another one. We're going to have for loading, we need to load it, sub product, and then load. Then I also want another one for delete. We want to be able to delete it. So sub product delete. We'll start out with those. And I wanted to mention some variables that we're going to need. And these variables are going to be used for all the macros. So we can write them up here above the macros. Dimension. We want the product row. We need to know what row the product is on. Product row. I also need a product column. We'll go over why that variable as along. Okay, so I also need to know the product column. Product column as long meaning whole number. Okay, whole number. And I also, that's pretty much it for now. That's a good start. I don't think we're going to need much more. They're going to keep this extremely simple. Let's do this. The first thing what I want to do is I want to save this. I want to take this information. I want to click save or update. This same button is going to be used whether we're saving or updating. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways to update the data. We're going to take this information. I'm going to put it in this first row right here. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, the first thing what we need to do is just write a little bit of macro. I want to make sure that the user has at least entered the product name in E7, because if they haven't entered any name, I want to let them know to please enter a name before saving a product. So we're going to be focused again on our product sheet. So with products, okay, that's with our product sheet. So everything we do after that is going to be based on this product sheet. So if dot range E7 is required, remember E7 equals empty, this is our product name, then let the user know, hey, please enter product name before we can move forward. So then what? Message box, please enter a product name before saving. Exit the sub. We're going to exit out because there's nothing we can do until they've entered a product name. Exit sub, okay? Nothing we can do. Assuming that they have entered a product name, we can then move on. Now I want to make sure that, I want to see, is this a, remember I told you we're going to use this same marker whether we're saving a new one or updating an existing one. But I need to know, is this a new product or not? How do I know this? Well, the best thing is on a new product, product ID is going to be blank, right? It's going to be blank. And we know that the row based on the product ID is empty, right? If this B6 is empty, we know it is already a brand new item, right? When we create the new, when we add a new product, click add it, everything's going to be cleared out here, including the product ID. So if this product ID is blank, right, then we know that this is also blank because there's an error. So if B6 is empty, we know it is a new product. So we can write that in the code. So if, let's do this, if dot range B6, let's move it over here just so we can see both. Let's move this, drag it over here a little bit. B6 dot value equals empty, then what? Then it's a new product. Else it's an existing product. Okay, so what if it's a new product? If it's a new product, I need to do a few things, right? I need to determine the next product ID that's going to be located here. I also need to know what row it's going to be going. It's going to be the first available row, in this case 4. So we need to know the row. If it's an existing product, already that row is going to be displayed located in B6. So let's do this. Let's get this product ID that's located here and put it in 2 places. First place I'm going to put it is right here. The second place I'm going to be putting as the first available located right here in column A, the first available. So let's do that because we're focused on the new product. So again, this is called the new product. This is the existing product. So we're going to write some code here, just one line of code. And then here, this is based on this. So for new products, what do I want to do? Again, H5 is going to be equal to whatever the next product ID in B7. So let's write that right now. Dot range H5 dot value equals dot range, what is it? B7. That's the product ID. So I want to put that product ID right there, but I want to put it in another place. I want to put it in the database, right? Or the list located in our product list. Product ID. Okay, so we've got it in H5, but I also want to put it inside where? Inside product, right? We have our list, product. This is the sheet name. Actually, product list. This one here, dot, make sure it's correct. Product list dot range. Where do I want to put it? A, and we need to assign a product row, right? We don't know what product row. How are we going to assign a product row? Well, let's do that right now before I forget. Product row is equal to, what is it? It's going to be the first available row. So I did auto hotkey that. It's fast, right? A99, the first available row. I'm using end XL up. This is going to get us the last row of data. This will get us the last row of data. If we add 1, it's going to get us the first row without the data. Okay, so this in column A. That's how we get. So now we've assigned the product row into this variable. So now A and the product row dot value equals what? Equals basically whatever we have in also in B7. B7 is our product ID. Equals B7, right? So that's also the product ID. So now we have it. Okay, so now what we've done is for these new records, we've taken the product, I've taken the product ID and I've placed it directly inside this column right here into A4, wherever it's located, whatever row. Now I need to add in the rest of them. But how do I do that? So basically what I want to do, this is where our data mapping is going to come into play. Because what I want to do is I want to look in row 1 here, and I want to look at E7 here. E7 is here. I want to see what is in E7. Whatever's in E7, I want to place that directly in that row. I want to look in H7 here. Whatever's in H7, I want to place directly in this column. And I want to do this the same thing for everyone. In E9, I'm going to look directly here. What is in E9? this purchase price, and I'm going to place it directly in here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run what's called a loop. So I'm going to loop from this. We've already placed this, so we don't need to start here. I'm going to loop from this all the way to here. So how do we know? So we could just going to assign some numbers. So what this is column number 2. So equals column, you could just put in 2 or not dollar. Column, right? Column 2. So if I want to loop from column 2, I want to loop all the way to column number 9. I want to loop from there all the way there. So from 2 to 9. So for 2, what I want to do is I want to look in E7. I want to place it in the product row. When we're placing a value on another sheet or in any sheet using VBA, we need 3 things. We need the sheet name. We have that, right? We know it's on product list. We needed the column and we need the row. So what is the row? We've already defined the row. We know the product row here. So now we only need to know the column. The column is going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through 9. This is going to allow us to take whatever's in these ranges here, this is data mapping, and place them directly inside the correct row. That's all we have to do. So we have to create a loop from 2 to 9. So let's do that right now inside the code. So we're going to do that. And then, but what if it's an existing? Okay, if it's existing, we'll write it. Then we'll write a column. Product row, of course, it's equal to, because it's an existing, we know it's in B6 because it's existing, equals B6, right? If we remember correctly, our product row, right? If we have product list, if I've got a 1 here, right? Product ID 1, and I've got a product ID here, we know already that our product row is located in B6. We know it's row 4. So if it's an existing item that's already been added, we know B6 is going to contain that row. So that's all we have to do for that. Okay, so let's go ahead. We added it in here. So product row for existing is going to equal B6. That's our product row. Okay, so we'll write in product, although it's relatively self-explanatory, product row. Good. So now, regardless, now whether it is new or whether it is existing, we're going to write the rest of the 3 lines of code, just 3 lines of code that's going to add all of this data into this row right here. We can clear that out, or I'll clear this out here, but basically 2 to 9, I'll keep that up for now so you can see why we're running the loop. And so I'm going to bring this down here a little bit so we can see both at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to go down here. 4, I'm ready for our loop. 4, we've already defined product column here. Product column is long, so we know it's a whole number. 4, product column is equal to 2 to 9. And don't forget to close that. Next product column. So now what do we want to do? So basically what I want to do is I want to focus, I want to add some information to this product list, right? So we're going to start out with that product list dot cells. I'm going to use cells. Why am I using cells and not range? I'm using cells because both the product, the column, and the row are both variable whole numbers. So we're going to use that. The row, we know the row, product row, right? That's the row that's going to be going into. The column is going to be variable under product column. Okay, so we know where it's going to be dot value. So that's where it's going to be placed, right? We know that our data is going to be placed directly in here. It's going to be here, 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 or it's going to continue on all the way. But where's it going to get it from? Where do we get the information? It's going to be an E7, H7, E9, right? It's going to be coming from here. So that our data is coming from here. So let's write that in. So our data is equal to dot range, right? It's the range based on our data is coming from the products here. So we need dot range, but where is that range? I need that range. Remember that range is located here, here, here. So it's going to be our range is located on our product list. So product list is where it's located. Dot cells, where's it located? It's located in the row 1, right? Where's the column? Product column. Okay, so that's where our values are coming from, dot value. So this right here, this is the part that gets a little bit confusing. This right here, this highlighted part right here, this is our range. This is E7, this is H7, this is E9. So as we move through those, it's going to take whatever is in this range and place it directly on the product row in the product column. And it's going to loop through that. That's data mapping. So this is add data to product list. Perfect. So that's all we need to do. So it's relatively simple. That's just 3 lines of code. Okay, good. So now what I want to do, one more thing that I want to do is once we add a product name, or even if we update it, I also want it, we're good with that now. So let's say we added green apples. Let's say we added a brand new one. I want that to show up here in this list too, in E5. But I also, when we make a change here, I also want it to load up. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to true, and I'll show you exactly why in a second. I'm going to change this to true temporarily. I'm going to take this value and I'm going to place it here. Then I'm going to change it back to false again. So let's do that inside the code, just 3 lines of code. So the first thing what we want to do is dot B4 equals true. So dot range B, because we're making a product update, B4 dot value equals true. Product update to true. And then what I want to do is I'm just going to copy this and we're going to change those to false. Makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to skip 1 row down and then change it to false. Then you're going to change it back to false. Okay, and then you'll see why this is important coming a little bit later on. So then what I want to do is I want to update that. Again, all I want to do is take whatever is in E7 and place it directly in E5. So we can do that with just a little bit of code. So dot range E5 equals dot range E7. E7. And that's going to place the name in the list, or the updated name, product name in drop down list. Okay, good. So now we've got it. All right, good. Let's take a look at that. Again, save your work. Okay, let's expand that. Let's just take a quick look. Let's go a little bit of rundown. So the first thing we're going to do is check to see if the product name is empty. If it's empty, we're going to exit out of the sub. And then we're going to check, are we on a new product, right? B6 is empty. We know it's a new product. If it's a new product, we're going to do 2 things. We're going to take that product, 3 things actually. We're going to determine the product row which is the first available row here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take whatever the next product ID is, we're going to place it directly into H5. We're going to also take that product ID, we're going to place it directly into the first row. Then what we're going to do is I'm going to loop from 2 to 9. I'm going to take whatever's in here and I'm going to get it directly from here, whatever's in those fields, all the way over here. And that's what we do here. So we're going to take H5, placing that product, determining the first available product row. Remember, this is only for new items. Then A is going to take on that first value, the product ID. If it's an existing product, all we need to do is just determine the product row based on B6. Okay, we're going to take our loop as we went over the loop, and we're going to run that, bring in all that data in. We're going to set B4 to true. We're going to E5, change that, put that product name in the drop-down list. Again, taking whatever's located in E7 and placing it directly in E5, taking that product name in case there's been updates or for new. Then we're going to make B4 to false. Okay, good. Saving our work as we did already. I'm going to take this. I'm going to copy this. You can also just select it if you've got a lot of macros. I'm going to right-click this, click Assign Macro, and product, I can paste in what I've created, or I can just select it from the list. Click OK. Now, again, saving our work, always good to save it. Now what I do, making sure we're cleared out, and I'm going to click Save and Update and take a look. Okay, a product ID has been saved. Our green apple's been put up here. Take a look inside the product list. Okay, we've got to update the row there. So we had some data. I think we had a 1 here. So let's take a look at that, making sure that we have it. I'm going to clear that out. Taking a look in here, product row must come to the first available. Let's take a look at that. Our product row located here. We have to set the product row. It's got to be on the right sheet, right? Product row is not, this is dot A, right? We're focused on product sheet, but I want it on the product list. Product list sheet is where we're going to get the first available row, right? Why did it give us that? Because our first available row is located here in 8. I had the wrong sheet. So if you see some data, I had the wrong sheet, right? So it gave us 8 because it was focused on our product sheet, but we wanted on our products list, which is located in 4. Okay, good. Let's click Save and Update. Take a look at this. Perfect. Exactly what you want. So now we see we've got it on the right sheet. We've selected the right sheet. So bugs are no issues. They're easy to work with. You can see why. We just simply have the wrong row. We need to make sure we select the proper sheet because we're focused here on the product sheet. So we need to make sure we specify the specific sheet that we want to get the first available row, which is on the product list. Okay, we've got that. It's working really good. Now all we need to do is, now what about, I want to create a brand new. I want to click Add a Product. And let's just check one more thing. Green, let's just call it strong apples, and I want to make sure that the update, click update, and it goes in. Now we click the drop down list. Perfect. And then what we'll do is we'll clear that out and then make the update. That's exactly what I'm clicking, save and update. Okay, good. So now we've got that. So now what I want to do is I want to add a product. It's just a very little macro to add a product. So product new, let's just call it sub product and then add new. Okay, write that in here. So what do we want to do? In this, basically, all we're going to be doing is just clearing out some cells. So it's relatively easy. So which cells do we need to clear out? So the first thing what we want to do is we want to make sure we clear those cells. So again, I want to clear basically everything from E5 through E11, E5 through E11. So let's do that. And then I also want to clear out again H5 through H11. And then I want to clear out these two as well. So those three sections we're going to be clearing out. So let's write that in here. Product, I'll drop this down so you can see both. And then what we're going to do is I'll just set products dot range, and then we're going to say E5, and you can do them individually, but it's image E through E11. Also, I want to do H5 through H11, and I want to do, again, I want to make sure that our K11 and also L11. So K11 and L11 also need to be clear out. K11, L11, then end quotes dot clear contents, right? Not clear would be clear the formats, just clear the contents. Okay, so great. I also want, if there's any picture here, I want to make sure to delete that too. So we do that. Let's do that again. Let's delete the picture. So again, we've already done on air resume next, right? In case there's no picture. And then I want to say products, we're specifying a sheet here, dot shapes, calling it product pick, let's capitalize it, product pick dot delete here. We're going to delete that. There we go. And then on air go to 0. Okay, so that's going to delete any picture. When we clear it out, I want to make sure we're clearing out any picture. Okay, so again, I'm going to, take a look at this, right click on the group, assign the macro, product, add new, click OK. Save our work, especially before clearing contents, right? Anytime you write the words clear or clear, right? Notice we had clear contents. If I messed up the range here, it's going to clear everything out possibly. So make sure you always save, especially before using clear contents. We want to always save our work. That way, if for some reason our macro messes things up really bad, all we need to do is close the application without saving and then just open it up. Okay, so we've already assigned the macro, click add new, and that looks pretty good. We've cleared out the picture, we've cleared out the data, all the data is here. Good, now we're ready to add a brand new one. So let's add a new one. Oranges, okay, purchase price, let's put in 0.75, and let's preferred vendor, let's do Fredder's Farm again, it's a good farm. And then now we'll put in a type, let's again fruit, and then we'll add a sale price of 1.75, and then reorder quantity 10 and 10. Let's set a picture on this for the oranges. Click on add a picture, and we'll click some oranges here. Okay, good. And then we're going to click save product. Perfect. Now we've given it a product ID 2. We've got the name, product list here. Okay, good. So now we've got 2 products saved. Everything is just the way we want it. But now what I want to do is when I click here, green apples, I want to load that green. I want that information to load up. So how do we do that? Again, we do that with a relatively simple macro, and that macro is going to be called sub product load. So that's going to allow us to load it. We're going to focus on with the product sheet. So with products, okay? So I want to focus on the products, focus on that sheet. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure when we load a product, right, what I'm going to do is I want the row, but this row is going to be based on the name. If I select oranges, I need to know what row to load all that data, right? All that oranges data is located on row 5. I want to know the name, the fruit, everything, right? I want to load it here, but I have to know the row. I have to know it's on row 5. That is where this one comes in, B5. Notice the row is based on this oranges, right? So that is where the row here comes in. So if this is blank, right, then I know that there's an issue with the name that the user has selected. So first we want to check if B5 is blank, let the user know, please select the correct product. So let's go ahead and write that in right now. If, I can expand this up a little bit, if dot range B5 dot value equals empty, then message box, please select a correct product. Good, so we've got that, and exit the sub. Nothing we can do unless we have a row in B5, exit sub. So let's copy B5 because we have that, and we're going to use that. We're going to assign a specific variable to that. Product row is equal to whatever's in B5, product row. Okay, so now we've got the product row. Again, we need those 3 things. We need, if we're going to be bringing information back in here, we need the sheet. We have the sheet. We need the row, and we need the column. We know the row. We've already assigned the row, and now we just have to get we're going to use reverse. And now we just need to get the cells. So now what I know is I'm going to take oranges, I'm going to place it in E7 on this sheet here. I'm going to take the fruit, I'm going to place it in H7 on this sheet here. So now what we're going to do is going to be using reverse data mapping to take all of this data and place it in these cells on the sheet. So that's all we need to do. Again, running another loop. So let's write that loop right now. So we've assigned the product row. Now let's do that for, again, product column. But this time what I want to do is I want to include 1, right? I want to make sure that this product ID is here located in H5. So we're going to run this loop starting with 1. Starting with 1, going from 1 to 9 because our product ID is not in yet. So in this case, we have to do just that. So product column equals 1 to 9. And then close our loop. Next product column. Okay, so inside that, now what we want to do is we're going to focus on this. So again, focus on the product sheet, dot range on the product sheet. Now what we want to do is we want to build information up. But where do I get the range? Where do I get this information? Where to place it? Where do I get E7? Where do I get H7? Where do I get E9? I get it from here. E7, H7, E9. I get it from here. So I get it from this product list sheet based on row 1, based on the variable column from column 1 all the way to 9. So let's write that inside. So based on product underscore list dot cells again, row 1. What is the column? The column's variable. Product column. It's going to move loop through 1 to 9. So this value right here and dot value. So this way we're going to bring in, this is where it goes, right? This is our range right here, and this is where it's going to be placed. But where's it coming from? It's coming from equals, again, product underscore list dot cells. It's coming from our product row, and then it's also going to come from product column dot value. So that's how we're going to bring over the values, bring it over. Now we're going to bring it over from that. Great. So we've got that. We're loading it up. Now it's going to bring all of our data into it. So let's go ahead and continue on. So we're going to go through that. And also, what do I want to do? Once I bring in this particular file path, I really want to display that picture again, right? I'm going to bring in the file path. I'm going to put it here. I want to display that picture. So how do we do that? Well, I'm simply going to run the load. But the first thing what I want to do is I want to make sure that if we're loading another product, I want to delete the existing picture. We want to do that, right? So let's do that. Let's update this product list cells product. When it shows in red, that means there's an issue. So range product list dot value. Okay, we're just missing the parentheses right here. Okay, good. So now we got that covered. Okay, so saw in red, just missing that parentheses. Okay, so now what we want to do is the first thing I want to delete any picture that might. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, right? In case there's any picture that previously there, I'm going to delete any picture that might have been there. We already coded that up. Now we're ready to add the picture. So all I need to do is add the picture. Actually, we don't need this. You know what? That's right. Because why don't we need to delete it? Because our macro that shows the picture, let's go ahead and take a look. This is the macro that I want to display the picture. It already includes it, so we don't need it. So I'm going to copy this, go back into the product macro. So once we load it, all we need to do is run the macro again. That's the macro that display the picture. And if for some reason there's no picture, it will not create an error. Because why is that? Because it's going to look for issues with that. And if it's not found, if the picture's not found, or there's no value, it will just exit out. Okay, great. But when do I want this to happen? When do I want this product load to load up? Well, I think I've just about finished everything, but what do I want to do? When I want to load this product, I want to load it when a user makes a selection. When they click here, that's when I want it to load, right? So that's based on a worksheet change, right? When I make a change to E5, I want to trigger some event. So we write that code directly on the sheet. So let's look into the product sheet. That's the one we're focusing on, right? Product sheet. When I make a change, so when I click on worksheet, and I click on change, not selection, when I make a change, so we can get rid of this selection. We're actually making a change. When I make a change to E5, then something's going to happen. So how do I do that? Well, basically what I want to do is just simply write some code that's going to allow us to do that. So let's write if not, right, intersection. If not intersect. What does that mean? And that AutoHotkey helped me type that faster. That means if the user, when you see not and you see nothing, it's going to cancel each other out automatically. So kind of forget that. It's very confusing. They just cancel each other out. So that means if the user makes a change target, and that change is in this target, this range, what range? Not H12, obviously. What range are we focused on? We're focused on E5. So we're going to change that to E5. That means if the user changes a cell to E5, is nothing, and I want to make sure that it actually contains a value. So not only that, and I want to make sure E5 has a value. If it's clear, there's nothing we could do, right? So if it's the kind of change where they clear this out, then I don't want to do anything. Only when there's actually a value in E5. So we're going to make sure that we check on that. So and range E5 dot value does not equal empty. Okay, we want to make sure it does not equal empty. And I also want to make sure that we're not actually loading empty. I also want to make sure that product update, remember, when I save it, when I make a change to orange and I take this and I make the change here, that is not the kind of change that I want, right? Only when the user actually mentions it. If I change this to orange juice, right, and I put that in and automatically the macro changes this one, that type of change I don't want to load in, right? So remember, we turned this to true and back to false. So if I make sure that this is false, then we don't have to worry about that. So let's do that. Let's make sure the product update is false to do that. Okay, so let's do and range B4 dot value equals false. Okay, so now that goes, and that's the one we want to make sure. Okay, what else do we want? I also want to make sure that there's a row attached here, right? I want to make sure, even though we have I want to make sure that B5 contains a value, right? Because it has to have a row. So let's make sure that as well. So because we can't load up and range B5 value does not equal empty, then I'm going to copy the paste. Then I'm going to paste that macro that I copied, then product load. Okay, good. Let's save our work. So now, if the user makes a change to E5 and making sure that it's E5 is not empty, right, not clearing out, and B4 equals false, and B5 does not equal empty, then product load. Okay, so perfect. Let's take a look at that. Now when I click green apples, it's going to load. That's exactly what I want. When I click orange, it's going to load. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, I'm glad we just have two macros, and I'm going to show you another way when we make an update here. I'm going to show you another way without having to click the save update. Okay, just a little bit. Let's focus on delete product now. All right, now that we got that working, there's one last macro. We got to get this delete product. We want to be able to delete a product. So let's go ahead and write that macro. Now, basically what we need to do is determine if there is a product row based on this product ID, making sure that we do have a row. And then all we need to do is locate the row, delete the row here, and then just run the macro to add the product, which will then clear out everything. So let's go ahead and write that macro now. Back into the product macros we go. We've got load done. Now, so far, we've done save and update. We've done add new. We've done load. And now we just have delete left to do. But after that, I want to show you a really cool trick. So don't go anywhere just yet. All right. Let's focus on this. We're going to focus on the delete now. With, again, products. We're focused on this product sheet. Products. Okay, but what are we going to do? First, like I said, we need to make sure that we actually have a product row. Without a product row, nothing we can do. So let's focus on that. If dot range B6, now that's the row based on the ID, B6 dot value equals empty, then nothing we can do. Message box, please select a correct product to delete. Let the user know. Exit sub, nothing we can do, getting out of there. Okay, assuming that we do have a correct product row, we can then assign that to a variable. We're going to assign it to this one, product row, the same one we've been using. So let's do that. We're going to copy and paste this here. We're going to paste it down here right here. So product row is equal to B6. That's the product row. Okay, what do we want to do? Now we're going to focus again on our product list sheet. On that sheet, we want to delete the row. So let's go ahead and write that now. So product and then underscore list, that's the sheet name, dot range. Then we have product row and again, parentheses, colon, parentheses, because we want the entire row, and then and product row dot entire row dot delete. Okay, that deletes the row. That deletes everything else. You know, there's something else you might want to do. Let's go ahead and write that out. What I want to do is give the user a warning. Maybe they clicked the button by accident. So let's give them a warning and give them an opt out, or give them an option to exit out. So let's do that now. If message box, let's create a message box. Are you sure you want to delete this product? Question mark. Okay. And then what type is the VB, yes or no? So we're going to type VB yes or no. It's a yes or no type question. I'm going to give that pop-up a title. We're going to call it delete product. And then we're going to close it out. Okay, if it equals, notice we're on an if, right? So let's extend this out a little bit here. Notice we're on an if. If the message box, so we're looking for an answer, equals VB no, meaning they click the no button, which is here. If they click the no button, then what do we want to do? Then exit sub, right? Nothing, we don't want to do giving them the option to leave. Okay, now that we've gone past that, so that way if they click no, exiting the sub, we will not continue down. Assuming they're continuing down, then we're going to delete the row, but I also want to add, I want to clear it out. So we can clear out the existing, right? Once they delete this record, if they click here, we want to make sure everything gets cleared out. Well, we've already written a macro that's going to do just that, and that's called product add new. So all we need to do, again, is copy this, and then bring it down here. And that's going to paste it down there. Now we've displayed it. And also what I want to do is I want to make sure we delete any picture again. So in case we have a picture, we can do just that. So we've already written code for that, for deleting the picture, and that's in the product pictures here. So it's right here on air. So this one we can copy. That's going to delete the picture back into that. And then of course we can just actually right after delete, on air, resume next, shapes, product, picture, delete. So that's going to delete any pictures that might be displayed. Okay, that looks really good. I'm going to save that. We're going to create a brand new product, and then we're going to delete it. So let's right click, assign macro, product, delete. I'm going to click add a product. I'm going to call this test product. I'm going to give it just a picture. I'm going to keep everything else out, just test. Add a picture here because it's quick and easy, making sure that the picture gets deleted. Okay, we're going to save that product. Okay, it's product number 3. Now I'm going to delete the product. Here's the option. Are you sure you want to delete this product? Yes. If we click no, nothing's going to happen. Good. If we click yes, it's going to delete the product. It's going to clear it out into the product list. No more product 3. Perfect. That's just the way I like. Okay, so now we've got delete product, but here's another thing that I want to do. Now, we know that we can actually, if we want to make an update to this, all I need to do is just click save and update. But what if I want to do this? What if I want to just change this to 50 cents and I want to have it update automatically? In other words, without having to click save and update. That's another great option. How do we do that? Well, basically what I want to do is I want to take whatever value is changed and I want to change a specific value. I want to change it right here in this purchase. Let's center these things here so we can see them properly. Okay, so I want to change the purchase price here on oranges. How do I do that? How do I know exactly where to change it, right? If I want to change sales price, how do I know where to change it? Sales price here. Well, again, we need 3 things. We need the sheet name. We know what sheet name. We also need a row number. We know what row number because it's going to be listed here. So the only thing we're missing is the column number. We need to know what column it is in. If we look in here, again, this is column 1, 2, and so on. So if we go over here and we loop that, we see what columns, right? We need to know what column. If I want to change the purchase price, I need to know that that purchase price is in column 4. If I want to change the sales price, I need to know that that sales price is in column 5. How am I going to know that? How do I know which one? Well, what we can do is we can do a reverse data mapping. It's another type of data mapping, and it's much easier. And again, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a screenshot here using Snagit. And it's going to allow me to take, I want to make sure the columns, that's okay. I want at least the data, but the columns may not be important. So I'm going to take a screenshot, and that's going to help me map the data in a reverse way. I'm going to Control A, C, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to come back into the products. And I'm going to map the data. I'm going to paste that right here. Okay, so now I've got a little idea. So I know, remember, the column number is what we need. Everything else we have. But where are we going to put the column? I need to know that if I make a change to green apples, that is going to change column 2, right? So let's put it down here below just for the time being. What if I want to change fruit? If I want to change fruit, or the type I should say, type is going to be column 3. If I want to change purchase price, well, that's going to be 4. If I want to change sales price, it's going to be 5. And so on. Let's continue on. If I want to change, again, the vendor, it's going to be 6. And the reorder quantity, it's going to be, let's drop this down a little bit. That should be 6, not 5. 6, right? And then if, of course, I want to change the reorder quantity, that's going to be 7. We see we column 7 here. And if the quantity on hand, I want to change it to 8. And then if I want to change the picture path, it's going to be 9. Okay, so now I know the column, but if I make a change here, all I need to have VBA do is look at the cell below it, and we know the column, and we know the column. So then we know the sheet, we know the row, we know the column, we know exactly what to place. Let's write some code based on this. Let me center these to make it look a little bit more clear so we can see exactly the column. And then I'm going to show you 2 different ways you can do this, okay? Here's the first way. It's going to be based on the column. So we know exactly the cell below is going to hold that column number. Now you can put this here, and of course this is kind of ugly, but if you want to keep these here, you could just simply change the font. Again, change the font, and it would show and would hide those, and as long as they're locked, it would be fine. That's one way to do it. This is the way we're going to start out with. I'm going to show you another way. Okay, so we've got the column now. We have everything we need. We have the sheet, we have the row, we have the column. We are ready to go. All we need to do is write a little bit of code. Now that code, what are we going to do? It's going to be based on making a change, changing any of these cells. When the user makes a change to any of these E7 through L7, right? But not on product load, right? When we're actually loading it, not that kind of change. When I click here, that's one kind of change, right? That's not the kind of change I want. I want only the change where the user is going to make that change. So we can use this product update in true or false to help us differentiate between those. How do we do that? Well, we can set this product update to go to true when we're loading it and false when we're not. So let's write that code right now. Let's make that update. Okay, so product delete, product load. So here is our product load. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write a little bit of code that puts B4 to true, and then we're going to go back to false, right? Dot range B4 equals true, and I'll show you how that's going to help us in a moment. Equals true, set product load to true, or product update, either one is fine. Then what I'm going to do, again, it's going to, before the macro ends, right, we're going to simply return it back. So this way we can do it here. Now we're going to change it back to false, okay? And then false, because there's 2 different types of change events, right? There's 2. When a user makes a change, I want to differentiate between 2 kinds of change. There's a change here. Notice it changed to orange. Notice it changed to apples, right? That's one change. But what if I change it like this? That's another type of change. This type of change is the only type of change in which I want to actually update this database here, this list here. So I need to differentiate between those 2 types of change. So how do we do that? Well, again, we're going to use this. So when I load it, if you look, maybe it's going to be very quick. It's too quick to see it, but it goes from true to false and back to true when we load it. But that's fine. It doesn't matter if it's quick. So now what we're going to do is we're going to focus on change. So I'm going to go back into my product sheet here. And again, we're focused on worksheet change when the user makes a change. So that's what we're going to focus on. But now we're going to use a change based on a different type of cell range. What is the cell range? Starting with E7 all the way over to L11, E7. So any type of change between E7 and L11, that's what I want to focus on. So that's what we're going to start out with. So I'm going to just drop it down here. We're still on worksheet change. So again, if not, okay, I can just copy this because we're focused on, again, change. Focus on this. This time it's E7 through, again, L11. So if the user makes any change, and what? Not just that, but I want to make sure, of course, that B4 is equal to false, right? B4 is equal to false. That differentiates between those 2 types of changes. And range B4 dot value equals false, okay? That's one type of change. That's the other type of change. So we want to make sure that we can differentiate between those 2 types of change. Very, very important. Okay, so we know that it's false, and we can continue on. So as long as it is, we also want to make sure that B6 does not equal empty. We have to have a row, right? We have to make sure we need the row. So we don't need to make sure that for any reason B6, why would B6 empty? B6 would be empty when we're on a new product. If I add a product, let me just comment that out until I'm not finished. Let's comment this out. It's going to create a bug until we finish that line of code, which is fine. If we click add a product, right? Notice if I make a change here, we don't know what row it is because it's a new product. So as long as B6 is empty, we don't need to continue on with this type of code. So we want to make sure B6 must contain a value for us to continue on. So that's the other option. So we can uncomment this out now. And now I say false and range B6 must contain a value. B6 dot value does not equal empty. Then we can do what we want to do. Then we can make that update. Okay, again, I mentioned we need 3 things to make that update. We need the column, we need the sheet, and we need the row. Those are the 3 things. If we have those 3 things, we can make the update. We know the row, so let's define the row. Let's dimension the product row, and let's dimension the product column. So let's do that inside the code. So let's dimension the product row as long, and then also I want the product column as long. Okay, now that we have both of those, now we can define those and put those into variables. They're into variables, so let's say put them in the values in them. Product row, we know it's equal to range. Now we don't need the dot because we're actually on the sheet, so we don't need to specify the sheet because we're actually writing code on the product. So we can just go, we don't need to specify any sheet. If I need to specify another sheet, then I need to put that there. So where is our product row? Our product row is located, of course, in B6. So let's write that in. B6 dot value, product row. Okay, now what about the product column? We need that, right? Where is it? Product column. Where is our product column? We got to have that. It is located where? It's located here, right? Isn't it? It's located right here. Actually, we cleared out the contents. Let's get rid of that. When we did the add new, what I want to do is notice that they got cleared out, right? We don't want that. So let's update the code. Let me just put this in product name. Why did that happen? 2, right? Let's comment this out. We don't need that yet. Comment this out. We'll focus on that in a moment. Reset this. Okay, so when we add new, we cleared out all the fields when we add new, but we want to specify only those fields, right? Only these fields. So we're going to update the add new code. Let's just rewrite those. 3, of course, and then 4 and 5. Okay, so now we got those back in. Let's go back into the add new and then product macros here. Notice on the add new, right here, we did the entire E5 through E11. What if we changed that? What if we changed that to E5, E7, and E9, and then E11? Okay, so again, 5, 7, 9, 11. Perfect. And then the next one, all we're going to do here is H5, 7, 9, 11. Okay, so that's perfect. So let's go ahead and update that. H5 instead of through 11, H7, H9, and H11, okay? K11, perfect. So now when we run that add new, it's not going to clear out these values because we're using them right now, so we don't want them cleared out. So let's go ahead and save our code, run it again, double check that we want to keep those numbers in here for now, and then we'll show you another way that we can. So click add product. The numbers stayed exactly where I want them to. That's perfect. Okay, good. So now let's continue on with our code inside our change event here under the products. Okay, so we're continuing on. The product column is where? Product column is exactly 1 cell down. 1 cell down. So how do we do that? We're going to use offset equals target dot offset, right? It's not exactly the target cell, it's offset. What are we offsetting? We're offsetting the row offset. It's 1 row below, so it's 1. Is it a column offset? No. No columns to the left, no columns to the right. If we're going to offset at 1 row above, it would be -1. Okay, so what is the value of that? So the value of that is our product column. Product column. So we defined our product column as to be exactly 1 row below. Now we have the product row. Now we have the individual product column. Now all we need to do is write code to make the update, and it's very, very simple. So let's write that down. Now again, we're going to focus on product list. So the product list dot cells. Again, we're using cells because both the row and the column index. Product row, product column. We've defined those. Dot value equals the target dot value, the change that the user made. That's it. Great. Let's take a look at that and see how that works. All right, so let's go ahead and change this to green apple. Take a look at that. Product list. Now it says green apple. I like that. Let's make another change. Let's change it to $1. Price went up, so we didn't change it to dollar. And now it says $1. Perfect. But there's one little change. Look, when it says, if I make a change to E7, I also want it to change up here. So let's write some code that says if the change we make is to E7, then also update the selected product. So we can write that into the code. So again, all I need to do is pretty much just copy this here and then take out the range. So if we're making change, but this case only E7 is nothing, right? And I want to make sure the target value is not empty, nothing, and range, the value, actually we could do range, probably E7 target value is probably worse. E7 dot value does not equal empty. We want to make sure it's not empty. Then what do I want to do? Well, I want to basically take this value and I want to change it here. But again, anytime we make a change here, right, it's going to load up automatically. So that kind of change, we need to make sure that the type of change that we're changing here is not going to automatically load up. And so to do that, all we need to do is change B4 to true and then change it back to false before we update that. So let's just do that right now. Then, so range B4 dot value equals true. Then we can make the update. And what is that update? Range, again, E5. That's where our drop-down list is. E5 dot value equals range E7 dot value, 7 dot value. Update, and let's call this update product name. And then, of course, we got to change B4 back to false, right? That's important. So take that equals false, okay? Set the product update back to false. So now if let's say I change this back to apples here, now it automatically updates in the list. So notice that it automatically updated. Great, that's really perfect. I wanted to show you one other really cool. So all we need to decide, but what if you say you don't want the numbers here? What if you don't want them hidden? You just don't want the numbers here. How can we find another way to make that update to where they're not here? We can also place these numbers elsewhere. Where else can we play them? Well, in fact, we can put them pretty much anywhere on the sheet, but let's make it easy for us. Let's put them off to the right. Let's put them way over here. And maybe what we can do is just hide this area and put the columns. So how do we do that? Well, all I need is to know, again, I need to know what the column is and I need to know how far over. Okay, so if I know, what column is this? This is column 5, right? So let's say I want to put them exactly 10 columns to the right. So let's move that over here. 10 columns would be 15, right? 15. So if let's say I take all of this and I copy that, and then on row, notice I want it on 15, right? I want it on 15, starting at 5. So that means this product would be on 14, right? So I'm going to put it exactly 10 columns over. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to paste the values in. Looks kind of strange now. You're like, well, what am I supposed to do with that? And I'll show you here in just a moment. So I'm going to double click that here just to let it know. And so so here's the idea. So instead of the product name, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the column here. Right? We know the product name is green apples is in column 2, right? So we can get rid of this 2. We also know that the type is in column 3, right? Which is fruit. So we can delete that. So basically the idea is to look, when I make a change to here, I'm going to look to the right exactly 10 columns. This is column 5. This is column 15. So I'm going to look in the same row, let's say row 7. I'm going to look, whatever we change, I'm going to look exactly 10 columns over. Notice this column 15. And in that column, in the same row, in 10 columns over, is the number 2. So I can look in that and I can define the product column based on just exactly 10 columns over. So this is 2. The purchase price, right, is 4. So let's put in 4 and clear that out, right? We also need to know the furthest from. This is 6. And the reordered quantity, that's going to be 7, okay? We can put in the sales is in column 5, right? We notice we've got the columns here, so we notice what they're here. And of course, the quantity on hand is 8, so let's put that here, quantity 8, right? And also, we need to know this value right here, which is the file path, that's going to be in column 9, right? So here, so it's going to be 8 and 9, right? So this is going to be, notice it's 8. And then this is 9. So instead of that, I'm going to put column 9. If we look at it again, let's just take a look. This is equals to column. This is in column 21. So this is in column 11. So we know exactly 10 columns over, we're going to find that 8. So when I make a change to this value right here, I'm going to look exactly 10 columns over. I'm going to find the 8, and I'm going to know exactly what column to place that in. Quantity on hand is going to be placed inside this column right here. And in the picture path, it's going to be placed in column 9. So we know exactly that. So that's it. So we have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we have all of our columns. So we're good to go on that. So we can delete. Let's keep that open for now. So how do we define that column inside the code? we've defined it here, the product column, basically offset one row down. But what if I comment that out? And now what if well, actually I can paste that, and then I'm going to paste it slightly different. So now the product column is on the same row. So it's not one row up or not one that's on the same row, but it is exactly 10 columns to the right. So if we change this to 10, our product column is the offset 10 columns to the right, 10 columns. So good. So if I change this back to 75 cents, and now it should update automatically into the purchase price. So if I look in the purchase price, we see it's updated now to 75 cents for green apples. And if I change it to 150, it's automatically changed based to 150. So it works great. It works both for the rows, columns to be displayed directly below and away. So now what we can do is we can just let's clean it up here. We don't need these. I'll keep them here for you for training purposes, but I'm going to clear this out so we don't need this anymore. You understand that. And we can delete this, so clean it up a little bit. We can bring this over. Of course, we can hide these rows. We can do whatever we want. We can color them differently. There's a few ways to prevent some errors. This will create some errors sometimes. If you make a change here, it's going to create an error. And why is that? Well, because it's looking for a product row, right? It's trying to look, there's no product column. Why is that? No product column. Because there is no, if we look here, there's no product column. This is where a lot of you run into errors on this. When we're data mapping, we just made a change to this cell here. But if we look to the right 10, there's no column here. So how do we prevent that error? Well, a great way to do this is just to check to make sure that there's a number in there. So let's write some code to do that before we make that update. So let's double check that and to make sure that we have that. So if, let's do this, if, and we can actually do it down here. If is numeric, we want to make sure that the product column is numeric. Product column, okay, in this case, equals true, then continue on. But I also want to make sure that we actually have a value here. So let's make that even sure, because I want to make sure there's actually contents in the cell that's 10 columns to the right. So we can write that up here just in case here. Do this, and then I'll make this update here. This is the update that I want to make here, right here, the target value. So we're going to write that up in here, those two things. So I'm going to put this over here. Not only do I need is it numeric, right? And I want to make sure it contains a value. Product column does not equal 0. Okay, we want to make sure that. Then and only then should we write that in, okay? Then I want to continue on. So we drag all of this in here and we make sure that it contains a value. Now we have it. Okay, so now let's take a look at that and see how that's going to work for us. Resetting it. Now we make a change here. Just now it doesn't create a bug. Notice there's no bug created. When we make a change here, it works automatically. Okay, so now what we've prevented bugs to ensure that we actually have a column number here, or that we actually have a column number here below it, either one. We need to make sure that we have it. So using is numeric ensures that we have a number and ensures that it's not empty, not 0. That takes care of that. All right, great. Purchase price, we see it's updated now to 75 cents for green apples. So if I change it to 150, it's automatically changed based to 150. So it works great. It works both for the rows, columns to be displayed directly below and away. So now what we can do is we can just let's clean it up here. We don't need these. I'll keep them here for you for training purposes, but I'm going to clear this out so we don't need this anymore. You understand that. And we can delete this, so clean it up a little bit. We can bring this over. Of course, we can hide these rows. We can do whatever we want. We can color them differently. So that's exactly how we actually now update and map data accordingly, both based on whether we're actually making a change. We're clicking Save or Update. And we're also showing it how we can do the columns below or put them all the way to the right. So that's data mapping. That's reverse data mapping. Now on any change, we automatically update the data. All right, good. We've shown you a lot in this really epic data mapping masterclass. We have learned how to map data when we're actually saving it, to map it to our database. We've also learned how to bring it back in when we're loading data, how to bring it back into the products area. And we also have learned how to, when we want to make changes, how we get those changes saved automatically to our database, our product list. It's been an epic training. I do hope you appreciate this. All I ask you to do is just to subscribe to our channel. Click on the subscription link below, button there, and don't forget to click the notification icon bells. And of course, if you do like these trainings, picking up the 175 workbook file would really help us out. That's going to keep these trainings free for you each and every week. I'll make sure to get them to you. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.